Good evening. My name is Vince Noblet, President of the Speedway Town Council. It is 7 p.m. Today is October 23rd, 2023. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Start off by introducing people up here at the council seat. My far right, we've got our town manager, Grant Klein-Enns.
Good evening.
To his left, Councilor Eileen Fisher.
Good evening.
To her left, Councilor David Lindsay.
Good evening.
My far left, our town attorney, Bob Clotter.
Evening.
Next to Bob on his right is our town clerk treasurer, Philip Faust.
Good evening.
And my immediate left is Councilor Gary Rakes.
Good evening.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for October the 9th. 2023. These minutes have been previously distributed to council. If there's no changes or corrections, we'll approve them as submitted. Hearing none, they're approved. Next item we have is a special event request for Cunningham Park Neighborhood Block Party. And is there anybody here to speak to that? Would you mind come up to the podium? Your name and address.
I'm Pam Risley, 1663 DeSoto.
Okay.
I'm Nyla Fox, 5912 Nash Lane.
Yeah, thank you for
Nice to meet
coming. This is a request, and so what, have you went and submitted an event request to the town, and it's been approved at that point in time? So what do you plan on doing?
Well, the neighborhood's done this for years and years and years, and we quit due to the pandemic, and so this is the first time in probably four years maybe. And I'm new. Nyla's been here for a long time.
A lot longer than that.
Many years, and those who've been involved before were, let's say, surprised to hear that now there are some additional hurdles that cost. And we do have a little money, but we're concerned about it, so that's why we ask for a waiver of the fee, whatever that is. And we have looked into getting an insurance policy for turns out that's expensive too, $180, I just found out today.
Yeah.
So we just play games and have music.
Get together.
And kids play, and we have bonfires and roast hot dogs and macaroni and cheese. And you're all welcome.
Fellowship.
Yeah, I think historically, some of you have probably been there, because I think that was always part of the thing, is to invite.
Oh, yeah, it's always good to have an event like that.
Yeah,
Get neighborhoods out of their houses and start working,
You're all
introducing.
invited.
Thank you.
Have a lot of new people in the neighborhood.
Right.
A lot of younger with children now. And that's a good way to meet everybody.
Yeah. Bob, could I ask you, just to let the public know why we're requesting insurance and things like that?
Yeah, so the insurance is a requirement of all the special events, whether or not other fees are waived. But it's important not only to protect the town, but you all individually, just in case somebody would fall and hurt themselves and they end up filing a lawsuit of some sort. Then there's insurance protection to cover it, and it protects the town, of course, because it'd be occurring on town property, but you all individually as well.
How long have you been, when did this change occur for the fee and the insurance?
This
Couple of years ago.
Yeah, with the special event ordinance that was adopted about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when we were having more and more events on Main Street, and, it was wise to protect the town in relationship You never know, especially, how things occur, and you think, well, we should have done that, and it was just to be safe. We're not trying to, make it difficult on individuals to hold block parties, and we want to support that type of activity from that standpoint, so,
Okay,
yeah,
we'll carry the message back.
okay, yeah.
What about home insurance?
Home insurance?
Yeah,
Like,
You're-
say my home insurance would cover if it was in front of my house.
It would if it was on your property, conceivably. With your permission, it often will cover invitees and that type of thing, but anything occurring on property that's owned by the town, we need the insurance for it.
Now, is that because we're blocking off the street?
Yeah. And
Okay.
Coincidentally, since we've done this, we've had at least two, if not three claims on similar type events. Somebody will trip and fall and break their ankle, and we end up getting a letter from an attorney seeking compensation. So it's for a very valid reason.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Understand.
thank you.
Well, just don't go anywhere just yet. I want to maybe ask Cheryl, I think this probably came through your desk. So is we're looking at this, well, first of all, I think we need to make a motion so we can discuss it. So I'll make a motion that we approve the special event request for Cunningham Park as presented. And need a second, I think.
Okay, got a motion and a second? So,
And we may make changes to that motion or may not, but it gives us the opportunity to talk about it. So as I look at the fees, there's the special event fee, which we know is something we did put in place. I don't know what the late fee is, but I'm assuming you're not going till late in the evening on this, so it's probably
No.
not an
So
issue.
Gary, the late fee is with the ordinance that was adopted, I believe it's 90 days out. You have to, the sponsor requests approval for the event. Apologize for my voice, cold. So typically there's a day fee if it's a late, if we're going within the 90 days amount, but
Okay.
that really wasn't relevant in this case because we were requesting the fees be waived, so I did not calculate that out.
Okay. And just to be clear, you nor other staff set these fees, so you're not the bad cop.
No.
You're just
Yeah, I just
following-
share the information and
following
educate.
our procedures.
Yeah, yes.
The right-of-way permit is $50. The rental and delivery of barricades is $435. Administrative fee for rentals is $140 in the street department labor. So I guess the question for me is what barricades would they be renting?
So I've talked to the street department to close the cul-de-sac. They will bring down the barricades that they deem appropriate. And I talked with Jared Sutton and Rob Wetnight, and they determine between them and the police department decide which, this is the same way for every event, decide which barricades they need to use. So I believe it was for 8 to 10 barricades. The street department will drop off for the neighbors to set when they're ready to shut the street. And then they will just move them to the side when they're done, and the street department will again pick them up on Monday after the
So they're
event.
picking them up when they're working,
Right.
they're picking them up.
Yes, that's typically how so we don't have to get into overtime and paying staff to be on. We just set them to the side so they're not in the way. Same way as we do any event on Main Street even. If it's a weekend event, we'll just move the barricades to the side or to an area that isn't causing any restrictions, and then the street department picks them up when they're,
And our events on Main Street are charged these same fees?
yes, sir.
The council has the option to
Yes.
waive these fees,
Yes.
though.
Yeah.
So
The
if
only-
there's an
yeah.
issue with that, all it takes is an amendment to that motion and waiver of those fees.
Right, which is, in some, I mean, some events you all have to waive the fees, other events you have it. It's typically up to the requesting party if they want to request those fees to be waived.
Right. I think,
Yeah.
Councilor Lindsay's asking similar questions that I was thinking. And for me, it's like this is a neighborhood event. We've had these around town for as long as I've been involved in going back 30 years ago, 25 years ago on a park board. But so to the point of labor, our staff is on on the clock already, so there's no additional labor. It's just a matter of this becomes a priority versus something else. And the barricades, I guess where I was going is, this isn't a for-profit event. There's not a group sponsoring this that's on Main Street or in the parks or something like that where they're making a profit. So I'm willing to amend my motion, but I didn't want to get in front of other questions.
I can add that I also have talked to the police department. They did not deem that any kind of officers were necessary to be on site for it because it is such a small event. Chief Deerdorf did say he would ask the officers on patrol just to come by as they can, as they were available to check to see if there were any issues or any questions or problems. So.
Sure.
I feel, Councilor Ricks, I agree. I think this is something we need to encourage.
Yeah.
And if we're charging fees, that's discouraging
Right.
the event to occur. I don't ever remember charging this group, and they've been in place. They've had this event for years.
Right.
I mean, it's an annual thing where you always come up to us. So to me, there shouldn't be any fees at all for it. I believe the insurance should still need to be in place. That's a requirement. I know it's a fee, but that covers you as well as the town.
And actually, it's insurance that you would go out and get as a group. It wouldn't be the town getting that insurance.
Correct.
So it's just
Right.
liability insurance that you would, maybe you'd get through your agent. Philip's clerk treasurer, and he's an attorney, so he could probably speak, and Bob both could speak to it better than I can, but I think it's just a matter of getting a rider or a specific policy for that event. And
I just think unfortunately, that's how things are these days.
yeah. So I would amend my motion to waive all the fees that are written within here, including any late fee that's not defined, or labor fees, they're not defined here. So essentially, there'd not be any fees at all, other than making sure that we do have, you would have liability insurance in place that meets the town's minimums.
Second that amendment.
I guess the question would be, what are our minimums?
For the insurance portion?
Yes.
It's listed on
Oh, it's on the back
It's on the
side.
reverse
Thank you.
side, yes.
Okay, get a motion and a second. Any other discussion in relationship to this? No, I really appreciate you guys coming tonight, and I hope you have good weather for the event, and and that you get a lot of people show up for it. And
please do come by.
oh, absolutely, yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next year, we know to do it all sooner.
Plan early. Yeah, that's good.
We just found out what we had to do.
Next on the agenda is special event request for Veterans Day Parade. Rick Roseborough. Thank you, Rick, for coming tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You've had this for a long time. The event.
Well, we've done a Veterans Day program ever since I've been here, but we went to the parade format because of COVID, and got a lot of positive reviews from the veterans calling back saying they really enjoyed it. So that's why I'd like to present this special request for your approval today, and it's kind of on behalf of Betsy Snap, principal at Fisher Elementary. Our buildings obviously are together, and we usually share this program with each other. Whatever we do together. So she couldn't be here tonight. So, but I am Rick Rose. I'm the principal at Speedway Junior High School. I think I know most of you. Do you need my address at 2203?
No, we know where you live.
Okay, just checking on the corner there.
Yeah.
30-some years, but we are seeking the council's approval to sponsor a Veterans Day parade to be hosted on Friday, November 10th. And I'll sum up just a little bit about the particulars and obviously any questions you have about the parade. But 2 years ago, COVID restricted us from having an in-person program to honor our veterans, so we opted to try the parade route. We received many positive comments from participants, so we wanted to sponsor another parade this year. Many of the veterans were elderly, and they really appreciated being able just to remain in the comfort of their own cars as they responded to us, and they enjoyed seeing the students lining the sidewalks, waving the flags, and holding up signs. So it was a very positive experience, so we thought we'd give it another try this year. Just some general things about it. The staging area for our parade would be actually behind the junior high. There's a parking lot there on 13th Street that serves as a nice area to stage for the parade in the back of our building. It would begin around 9 o'clock, and then we would plan on starting the parade around 9:30. The route would come up Allison. We would turn east on 14th Street, go right in front of the junior high Fisher main entrance. At Winton, then, they would turn right again, proceed down to 13th Street, which is the street along the back, which would then end up again heading west and stop at Allison, kind of where they started. And then we would do that twice because they enjoyed it so much. We went in and did 2 laps last year, or 2 years ago, so we basically would make that loop around the building 2 times. Along the route, well, first of all, our resource officer, also Jeremy Howard, I want to mention, we've been in contact and communicating about this, and he has graciously agreed to oversee, supervise, along with school personnel, getting it all set up. And he's got connections with the police, so that kind of helps a little bit if we need them on site. We anticipate about 500 students and faculty, because that's our enrollment between the two, and then the faculty lining the sidewalk area. We've already purchased flags kind of ahead of time. They would line the sidewalks around the building, wave the flags as the veterans drove by. The Fisher Elementary students are going to make little posters. The Speedway Junior High School art classes are going to make bigger posters, and we're going to have our junior high band performing on the front porch of the junior high, which is really cool. They come around, the band. Our band's really good. Yeah. I hate to brag, but Miss Crone does a great job, and they sound great, and you can, the whole neighborhood probably hears them, so it's kind of a neat thing when they come around. So we will ask our students that day to wear red, white, and blue. Like I said, Fisher Elementary students are going to be making posters for the veterans. The junior high art students will also be making larger posters, and we hope to hold those up and thank the veterans for their service. So we appreciate your consideration for approval. If you have any questions,
No. So do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion. We approve the special event request for the Veterans Day Parade at the junior high and Fisher Elementary.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second, so I'll open up any discussion. Any questions for Rick? Go ahead.
public is welcome too, by the way.
Yeah, so
You have a few of
that was a question.
people around, especially if the weather permitting, they can all come out and kind of watch another parade.
I would like to amend my motion and with that we waive the fees for this event that are listed.
Okay,
Yes, I
Appreciate that.
you got a second?
Oh, a second.
So any further discussion?
So that was going to be my question that you answered before I asked it.
Oh, for the
So
public,
if the
yeah.
public participates, where do they do that? I mean, obviously, you want to manage your kid, the
Yeah.
students, and
They would
so
probably be
forth.
on the other side of last year, the few that did come out, or 2 years ago, came on the other side of the road. We don't mind if they mingle with us, but we pretty much take the whole sidewalk with
Yeah.
500 kids and faculty members, but they're more than welcome to come out and grab a cup of coffee and watch the veterans go by, and it's a pretty neat event. So
Yeah, this is
they're always welcome.
It's a fantastic event. I'm glad that you guys take care of it and support the veterans, especially in Speedway.
Yeah, that's really important, I think, and for our kids to realize that it is and to support.
Oh,
them.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good day, so.
Is the preschool across the street been notified of the event?
No, that'd be good, maybe get them come out, that would be really
Well,
cool.
to get them to come out, but then the other piece of it, I think their time of drop-off
Oh,
is a little close to.
9 o'clock, 8:30?
I should know, my grandkids go there, I should. Always working at the building across the street, I don't drop them off.
You got-
I can speak to that. My wife works as a teacher at the preschool. Their drop-off is at,
Yeah.
sorry. So Nick Sturgeon, live at 5045. My wife is a teacher at the preschool, so their drop-off is at 9 o'clock, and their pickup is right before the elementary school lets out about 2:50-ish.
2:50,
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up.
But then they could come out there and join us. So.
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat,
Yeah.
especially if the weather's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Hearing now more discussion, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote for a special event request for a Veterans Day Parade, waiving all fees. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Now you can tell the band to start practicing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next up is the discussion about health insurance RFP. Philip?
Thank you. I did want to take an opportunity to kind of give a recap of the work we've done so far, and then depending on any questions that are remaining, potentially ask the council for a motion. So we've been shopping around, looking carefully at our health insurance options. From my position, one of the strong drivers of that was the ever-increasing costs of health care, and the big budgetary item that is for the town. But as we continued through this process, we also identified some other goals when we were looking at both brokers and potentially new insurance carriers and options. And those other goals were that we wanted to improve our benefits in such a way that we could continue to attract and retain top talent. Hopefully through this process, we can also provide benefits that will help people have better health outcomes for themselves and their families in the long term. But we knew that we wanted any options that we did choose to present minimal disruption to our employees. This is obviously a big part of how most people plan their own household budgets, and we're aware of the fact that any changes to their insurance or network could be a point of stress, so we wanted to minimize that. Brian, if you're able to put up the first slide. So for your all's page one, I had to try to zoom in so that it would actually be visible on the TV. So this is your top left corner of your page one. This is where we're at today. And so as we were looking at different options, we started with this model. And everything that we were looking at, we wanted to keep as close to this as possible, with one exception. If you go to slide 2, no matter what we do, even if we stay with Anthem, which is what this is presented here, as a fully insured option, our deductible will have to change because of federal regulations. So that'll go up to $3,200 on the single side. So that's outside of our hands. Aside from that, every other plan that we tried to look carefully at, we modeled on the idea of keeping the same coverage for the insured. So as we were thinking about that, just to give you a snapshot, right now we have about 117 employees on the plan. It is a fully insured plan through Anthem, which gives us a pretty broad network. 117 employees, though, means at any given time, we have obviously much more people on the plan than that, because it's, if you think about all the family members that are on there as well. So it has a big impact for a lot of people. So if we're looking at ways to achieve those 4 goals that I outlined, going to the next slide, please. This is the top right-hand corner of your all's page 1, zoomed in. These were the other fully insured options that we looked at. And there were potential savings to be had even there. If you think of insurance, though, I think these terms are a little bit misleading. You should really think of it as a spectrum of coverage. So even our quote-unquote fully insured plans that we're talking about here, you already saw that there's deductibles involved, right? So there's some risk being borne other than by the insurance company at any given time. And then at the other end that we're considering, what we would call self-funded or self-insured options, one of which I am recommending for your consideration. Even that is, the nomenclature is a little bit misleading because you're not really still fully self-insured. Again, it's a spectrum. And there, you will still have stop-loss insurance that caps out the maximum liability that you have per individual, so per belly button on the plan. And then you'll have insurance that caps out your total liability for the year. So again, these are terms that we use loosely to kind of help differentiate, but here we're looking at our fully insured options. Right off the bat, given our commitment to minimal disruption next year, if we hit to the next slide, we're going to take number 3 off the bat. That's a narrow network. I don't think that that's, given the amount of disruption that would present, I don't think that's one's worth considering. 1 and 2 are United Healthcare. United Healthcare has an over 90% network overlap with Anthem. So there potentially could be some disruption, but not a ton with going with them. One of the questions that we tried to get a better answer for and hit a road stop with Anthem, our current carrier, on was could we run a report of all of the different providers that people have now and compare that so that we know that, would one person lose a doctor or would no people lose a doctor? And unfortunately, their answer to us was that you're not a big enough group for us to run that report. So what they did is they gave us the top 25 providers. We did run those against United Healthcare, and they confirmed that the top 25 providers have overlap.
Top 25 by dollars?
Yeah, I'm
Or
not 100%
appointments.
certain on how they identified top 25. I took it to mean by individuals, but I didn't question that.
Okay.
So I think, this would be perfectly legitimate options to look at, considerable savings that could be had, and still an extensive network that has considerable, over 90% overlap with our current network. But if we're really thinking about those 4 goals that were laid out, again, cost containment, being able to provide a better plan that attracts and retains employees over time, better health outcomes that we can drive, and minimal disruption, I think we still need to go ahead and take a much closer look at self-insurance. Again, with the reminder that it's not truly fully self-insurance. There's a stop-loss carrier that will be involved that will limit our risk. So we can go to the next slide, please. This is going to be on your page 2. I've gotten just a little bit ahead of myself, which is, this is another set of fully insured options that I think you can mark off your list right away, but we went ahead and, we cast a wide net trying to find different options. And so if you proceed forward to the next slide, I think you can take all those off your list because, again, considerable disruption to the employees. So these are still fully insured plans, but a narrow network of IU, and so with the goals that we've set out, I think you can eliminate that. If we go on to the next slide, this is again where I think the meat and potatoes are. These are our fully self-funded options, our self-funded options. The benefits to self-insurance are that we're acting as the insurance carrier for part of the liability here, and so we get to capture a lot of the savings that to date are being had by Anthem. So it gives us more control and flexibility in the plans that we would craft in the years to come. It gives us access to more and better information. But I will say that this is a long-term savings gambit. You can't look at this at any one individual year. You may have great savings one year and not so great savings the next year. It has to be something that you look at in the long term. That does mean that there is some downside risk, obviously. If we had a much worse year than we've had in recent history, then there's potential for us to have some considerable out-of-pocket costs. But the way that we limit that risk, again, is with the stop-loss insurance. So, again, two different kinds of stop-loss insurance by the same carrier. You're going to be looking at the top portion there, and you're going to look at an item called specific stop-loss deductible, specific premium composite, essentially anywhere you see on there that says specific. And that's going to be the first kind of protection that we have. So in exchange for our specific premium composite, they're going to be giving us a certain deductible per person. It's going to either be $75,000 or $100,000 on these sheets. So again, that's per insured or per belly button on the plan. They're saying in a given year's time, the most that you're going to have to pay for that person is $75,000 before our reinsurer, our stop-loss insurer, kicks in. Then you're going to look at the aggregate numbers, anything labeled with aggregate. And you're going to have an aggregate premium that we pay, and that is going to cap our exposure. And that exposure is tied to a percentage of the expected claims in a given year. When you put all that together, you're going to be looking at the column on the far left, and you're going to look at A, B, C, and D. And when we add those numbers together, we either get our total annualized expected costs or our total annualized maximum costs. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the first top is our fixed costs. This is essentially our premiums and other fees and rates that are included in there. And when we're comparing the self-insured options here, as we had suspected before, when we had talked about the different plans that might be coming in at the last minute, Anthem has done the most competitive on the fixed costs here with $522,000. Next slide, please. Then you're going to take that and you're going to add it with one of two different numbers here. So that's B and C. These are the expected claims and then the aggregate attachment point. So the expected claims, the name is fairly self-explanatory. This is what their logarithm has told them or algorithm has told them they would expect us to reach next year. And then they take a percentage. For most of them, it's 125%. One of them, it's 110% of that. And they say that's the aggregate attachment point. And that is the maximum number of or the maximum amount of claims that we can have in a year before that higher level of stop-loss insurance kicks in. So then you take each of those numbers, add them to A, and you throw in the laser there, that's D, and you'll get, next slide please, the two figures at the end, which are your annualized expected costs and your annualized maximum costs. So what this is saying is that, they're banking on us being roughly around 2.1 million. If they hit 2.5 million, then our stop-loss insurance comes into play, and that's the maximum that we would have to pay for the year. And that's inclusive of the annual fixed cost, the premiums that we're paying to that stop-loss carrier. So if you notice, comparing to where we're at for our, if we just went ahead and stuck with our current plan of Anthem fully insured, and that's going all the way back to that first page you had. Even in our worst case scenario there under Anthem, we would save about $30,000. And that could happen next year. We could have the worst case scenario. A lot of things would have to go wrong, but it could happen. But more likely, what their statisticians are telling us is that it's likely to be 2.1, in which case then if you compare that to the 2.5 that we would be paying under a fully insured plan, we're already looking at savings there of about between $300,000 and $400,000. If you look at column 1 there versus column 4, you could see that there could be additional potential savings going with UMR, which is the administrative side of United Healthcare. The reason I'm not recommending that is, there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that, especially for the first year, I think we would already be changing enough on the back end, and I would just kind of like to see how things settle out with that. It also, if we go with option 1 there, from the employer's perspective, from the the employee's perspective, from the insured, they won't see any difference. They will get an Anthem insurance card, their network will be the same, their claims will be processed through Anthem. It's just that on the back end, we'll be paying claims out through Anthem. And so again, if we're talking about minimal disruption, that's another reason I lean towards option 1 there. I also think that there's potential for additional savings under 1 because the fixed costs are so much lower. I mean, next year the claims are going to be what the claims are going to be no matter which insurance carrier we have. And in fact, on average, because of Anthem's contracts, their claims cost about 2% less. So, the different underwriters massage things a different way to give you a different quote or whatnot. But I think that there's a potential that we're going to save on the fixed cost side and then still come in under what they're saying on the expected costs. Currently, we're running about 85% of expected costs. An additional good position that we're in, maybe wasn't such a good position in the past, but it works to our benefit now, is that because our premiums have been pretty high, even if we keep the same model of premiums as last year, but we switch, or this year, but switch to the fully insured, those premiums will not only fund it and cover the expected costs, but they will cover the maximum costs as well, so that they're covering 100% of what Anthem predicts we would have in costs. They're actually covering 125% of it as well, which just means that we can build up a reserve that much quicker for when you do have those really bad years. So it is my recommendation that we go ahead and switch to a fully to a self-insured model. It would still be with Anthem, who would be our administrator. Anthem would be our stop-loss carrier. So again, from the employee's perspective, everything would remain the same. They'd have the same network. They'd still have an Anthem card. But then we could take a little more control of our destiny and start looking for additional ways to find cost savings as we go along. Some of those ideas much longer term, as we think about going out years into the future, do we try to partner with other people to have clinics? Do we look for telehealth medicine options? Do we look at taking some of those savings to help with HSA contributions and so on? So I'm excited about the opportunity that this presents. I think that it will help us move forward in a lot of different ways. Again, with costs, with regards to talent, better health outcomes for people as we can hopefully tailor plans towards health incentives and hopefully do it in a way that's minimally disruptive to them. I think other questions that had come up before, maybe I've already addressed those, but.
Well, why don't I make a motion so we can ask questions and talk about it? I'll make a motion that we move forward with the Anthem ASO partially self-funded health plan as presented by our clerk treasurer.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second so we can discuss it?
That's column 1, is that correct?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. I'm going to open it up for discussion. there's a lot of work going into this. I can definitely tell that you've been working at this for a while. Is this, you said, it is not any additional for the employee. How about for your team? Is it any additional work that you're going to be handling in this transition?
Yes. But it's, I guess, work that we happily take on because we think it's to the benefit of the employees and to the town. But, I mean, Anthem would be acting as a third-party administrator, so they'll be administering the actual claims. But, we will have to set up an additional fund and monitor that and seed it. And I think, especially in taking those steps 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're going to have to really get into the data, work with our insurance agent to find those additional ways to save money going forward. This is one step in the right direction, but I mean, the insurance carriers have very smart attorneys and their own accountants. So do the hospitals, so do the providers, so do the drug companies. I think managing healthcare costs is a constant going back and forth. So we wouldn't just adopt this solution. We'd be looking prospectively for solutions 2, 3, and 4, as they're going to constantly be looking for ways to recoup more money, and then we're going to look for new ways to adapt to keep more of it on our side.
So your office is going to be the one that's managing the funds, is that correct?
The funds, yes, ma'am.
And so then any claims and things like that is going to be on the claims of the council? How is that handled, I guess?
Yeah, we're going to have to figure out the process on that in more depth, but I think that they will come through so to my office, they'll come through most likely on a weekly basis. And then we will have to find a way to sanitize those, right? They can't be presented in too much detail.
Right.
I'm going to have to aggregate them.
Well, right, but my understanding is the ASO, which is administrative services only, Anthem's been doing more than that, and United Healthcare did for years before that, and we flipped back and forth between the two many times over the years, which a lot of employers do. But that ASO, or administrative services only, Anthem's doing all the heavy lifting in terms of fighting claims when hospitals or physicians or pharmacy groups, or all the different, literally 30, 40 different groups charge a health plan for those fees. Anthem goes through those. They have software and they have people that go through those to right size the claims, and then that's what's presented to the town to pay for. And then any questions that the town has of Anthem on that, they explain those. So we pay the bills, but Anthem basically tells us, here's what those bills should be and why. The procedure, cost $10,000, let's say $50,000 for a procedure. But one of the hospital systems might try and bill $60,000 with some extras. And we all get that at home when we see our deductibles and copays and those kind of things. That's true of our plan as well. But today we don't see any of that because we just pay a fee that's fully insured, and there's nothing we can fight in terms of, because we're not paying those bills, Anthem is. So is that making sense? I mean, we will be paying the bill that comes in every month or every week or whatever that might be, that the future council will approve, but it's based on Anthem doing the heavy lifting of going through all the claims and saying what should and shouldn't be paid.
And they're not going to be disclosing that personal information?
Correct.
That
Yeah,
You'll just get a bill from Anthem or UMR weekly, say this is how much you owe.
Okay.
So on the claims docket, you might see 2 weeks' worth of payments to the insurance company for those claims. You wouldn't see necessarily what those claims are made of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you will be approving those at every meeting so that we can make those payments.
Right. Just for those that might be tuning in, I'm not in the insurance business. I'm not a licensed broker or consultant or anything of that nature. I work with several of them, but don't receive any monies from them, and have for about 14 years of my career. So I understand this business. I've been in the clinic space, providing that over the years, and in the pharmaceutical space. That's why I have a fairly decent understanding of some of this. One thing that you pointed out, Philip, I think it's important. This year, you said 85% were our current costs, actual costs of our employees and dependents and spouses. The costs are 85% of what we've actually paid in premiums. So that's $380,000 plus dollars that Anthem's pocketing today, in addition to their fees, which next year their fees are lower because we're trying to compete against these competitors. Their fee, in addition to the $522,000 that they've been collecting for managing our plan. So they're keeping about $900,000 when it's all said and done, of the $2.5 million we spend. So we're cutting back from that significantly, and those are the extras. So
But one of the
They
big
take the risk
concerns
and-
can be, though, in self-funding is that savings that we build up, and you have that one bad year. So then, in that scenario, what does that look like then for the town? And are we, at one point in time, when we originally were meeting, we talked about having an account already established with X amount of dollars, and what is that dollar amount?
Well, we have a couple different options. I mean, one, we do have enough in reserves that we could fund that reserve amount that you see that's in the yellow at the bottom. So we could fund that up front.
The maximum,
Yes.
32, or the 403?
403.
403.
I'm sorry, right above the yellow. So you'd see if you really wanted to be safe, you would do the 519 right above it.
Oh, okay.
But what the yellow shows you is that what amount in the first year we would build up in reserves under each scenario, so under your expected or your maximum exposure. So within the first year, if we run it at expected, you're already funding about 403 of the 500,000. But we're also in a good enough position that with the reserves we have in our general fund, if we wanted to, we could go ahead and fund our reserve up front, in January if we wanted to.
I would add to that if you take the $2,535,000 and divide that by 12, that's our monthly cost. But for premiums, what we're collecting and what we're expected to have claims for. But those first month to month and a half, conservatively, it's probably more like 2 months, we're not paying any bills because the bills from December are what come in January and February. The bills for January, February come in March and April. So those first couple of months, those premiums that we're paying and our employees co-pay premiums go into our reserves as well. So in addition to not spending as much because Anthem's not going to collect as much because we're managing the payables and they're taking some of the risk but backed up risk with our stop loss insurance and so forth, we're actually having another $316,000, almost $317,000 in the first 45 days that we put into reserves that never get spent on claims because those are premiums that we're collecting to ourselves that we're not paying for the November and December claims.
So
that won't be true next year in '25 because we'll have 12 months of claims and we'll be self-paying at that point.
Right.
I think I share your concerns. That's what I've been mulling over for months repeatedly is, what are the absolute worst case scenarios, right? And the way that they've presented this for us, Anthem's option, I don't see a significant downside to it. Even in that worst case scenario next year, our stop loss insurance kicks in at a spend out rate of us at $30,000 below what we would have to pay in our premiums for Anthem next year if we stayed fully insured. So in the absolute worst case scenario for next year, we're banking $30,000.
What about the year after that?
Right. Well, again, that's something I put to our insurance brokers over and over again. I think I was operating under the misassumption at one point that, well, maybe it was riskier, like you could get dropped sooner, your rates could go up, but I don't think that those risks are categorically different than where we're at right now. I mean, we're already facing, like, if we had that terrible year next year, then Anthem could still raise our rates dramatically as fully insured. So I don't think it puts us in a different.
So then if it's worse in '25, then the rates for the employees would go up, is basically what would happen.
No, not necessarily. It's up to the future council. The same as if rates went up this year, like they did the last couple of years, even though our cost didn't, is what Anthem's now telling us. But if our rates went up, the town's rate would go up its normal percentage, whatever that percentage is in the future. And then the employee's rate would go up the same percentage if the future council increased that. So today, the contribution for the employee is how much per month? It depends on whether it's an employee, family, et cetera. It's,
Small percentage.
yeah, it's a small percentage. So the future council can say they want to keep it where it is. And the town will have to pay that additional rate. The same as if the town would stay self-funded, or excuse me, fully insured, and it goes up next year, then it's the same, it's going to be the same increase either way.
So if we go with the ASO, are our employee rates going to go up next year?
No.
They're staying the same?
That's up to us.
Well, the way we've structured it is that it would say, we structured it based on the same inputs. Like that was what the analysis was supposed to be.
And then the employee deductible goes up 200, correct? And that's because the federal government says it's got to go up 200.
And that's regardless of, if we stayed fully insured,
Doesn't matter what plan we go on, that's going up 200.
we're being forced to give worse insurance, and it drives me nuts.
And how about your out-of-pocket maximum? Is that changed?
No,
So that's the same as what we're on now?
correct.
So what's the reasoning, why did it go up $200? What's the reasoning, federal government?
Affordable Care Act,
Oh, okay.
Obamacare.
Okay,
It's built
So-
in for years.
okay.
So the other things that I want to try and draw our attention to, there really are, I don't see any negatives to this, with the exception of the internal effort for having to pay a bill every couple times a month in the claims. In addition to that, the negatives would be our human resources director having to have a little more hands-on in the first next couple months as we transition to this. But if it's the same plan, same insurance, same health plan provided by Anthem's network.
The employee's not going to see anything.
They're not going to see much change. Now, our HR department's going to get more visibility to this so that they can be on top of things and they can start doing some of the positive things or preparing for some of the positives. Some of the positives that I see, besides the same networks and the same costs, are, we have more flexibility with pharma. There may be things we can put on our plan because we're self-funded in this case that we can choose. Now, that might cost us a little more, but that's a choice that can be made. Later in the year, if we're running to a real positive and this expected, we do even better than expected. In June or July, town manager and clerk treasurer could be looking towards a clinic and start working towards that and maybe even get it done before the end of the year if you're really running to a positive. And so those are things that can be done. You don't have to wait on when you're self-funded, self-insured. You don't have to wait to make changes. You can actually make those changes midstream, whatever you want. So if you're running positive, you can add things to that, to the town, the employees, and dependents' benefits. In addition to that, the telehealth that was mentioned. We don't have a telehealth program today that I know of with our health plan, and that's something that could be added. Again, in coming months, it might be second half of the year, but if you're running to a positive, even more so than what's here, your reserves are built up and it's all looking strong, then you can add things to it. So there's a lot more positives besides just the bottom line dollar. The other thing I want to point towards is, of the 6 options we have besides Anthem's ASO, when you go to United's 3 that were on that first page that Philip shared, and the 2, 3, and 4 on this other page, their figures are greater. Most of those are greater. If you see the fixed costs, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but the fixed costs they're showing the fixed cost is higher, and there's a reason for that. They don't have the same visibility into our fully insured health plan that Anthem does. Anthem has 100% visibility to every cent that we spend. Next year, when we're self-funded, all of these companies will have 100% visibility, the same as Anthem does, because that's the benefit. One of the benefits of going self-insured is those underwriters for all the companies have 100% visibility. Today, they have about 80% under a fully insured plan. So I've seen it in my experiences where year 2, even though we might have a bad year, there will be some opportunities that some of these other companies might bring us. It might make change, it might not mean change for the network, but there's a huge benefit we're not even seeing there yet. But if you saw, there's item 3, UMR Certus, they're $500,000 expected savings for that program. And so I just think there's so many positives here. The only negative is really in terms of effort, with internal effort. Because if we have a bad year and our rates go up, they're going to go up regardless, fully insured or self-funded.
So Philip, you have I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
So you have somebody that can ultimately take care of this in your office, and it's not going to require a new hire, and so our savings are not going to go to...
Right. I don't believe so, not with just this step. Now, if we down the road decide to take some of those more aggressive steps, implementing a clinic, things like that, then we would have to weigh out the cost of an additional employee for some of those things potentially. But for just this transition, I don't believe we would need additional employees.
So then if you bring new employees in, then that kind of cancels the savings that you have in the insurance, correct?
What do you mean?
Well,
I mean, it would subtract from it. I don't know that it would cancel it when we're talking this level.
You're saying that you're saving on insurance by going to self-funded, but down the road, if we go to the clinics and the televisits, it's going to cost the town more money because we're going to have to fund an employee.
No, the reason a clinic is successful or beneficial is, first of all, if you look at all of the people on our plan, which are called members, employees, spouses, and dependents, over half of them don't have a primary care doctor. If you don't have a primary care doctor, and that's the purpose of the clinic, is to be a primary care physician for those members. If you don't have one, you show up at the urgent care more often. You show up at the emergency more often. Or you go straight to a specialist and you don't get the benefit of a generalist being able to guide you in wellness and some other things. So the benefit to the clinic is actually another savings opportunity. For us, we're too small to do our own clinic. The benefit that we probably down the road might go to would be sharing a clinic with other groups that have them. I know that, for example, Brownsburg and Avon share the clinics today. Their employees live in both communities, and they're able to go to either clinic with that. But they don't have a specific set of employees in the clinic. It's an expense, but it's less costly to do the clinic than it is to actually have primary care through a hospital system.
And your employment is the clinics, correct?
Yes, yeah. I spent 10 of the last 14 years in the clinic space, which this has nothing to do with other than it's an option for the town later when I'm no longer a town councilor.
Convenient.
There's 15 clinic companies in central Indiana.
Your committee, or you had a committee for this, correct? Who all was on that committee?
Mr. Kleinheinz, Nikki Parker, our HR director, Mr. Noblet was there for some of it, Mr. Rakes was there for some of it.
In the I'm going to say the word wrong.
Stop loss.
Thank you. Where is it you get that from? Is that a company, or like who is it you contact to get that?
Well, in this particular, the one that I'm recommending, Anthem would be acting as the stop loss insurer on this one. On the other ones, like if you saw at the top, there'd be like UMR for the administrator and then / and then you would see which the different stop loss carriers that were there. But that's a additional insurance market that's out there too. So, you don't always have to be with the same stop loss carrier. When you're with Anthem, though, they want you to do it all through them.
Of course. The group that we I don't know if contracted's the right word.
Yeah. Brown and Brown?
Yeah, how much involvement have they had with this?
Well, they're the ones that put the spreadsheets together for me.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're our insurance broker, so they went out into the market and brought all the quotes to us.
Okay.
And they sought other quotes. I think there's some notes on here. You know, some companies declined to quote for us based on whatever their criteria are.
Just to start the conversation, my main concern is our employees, because this is who this is for. And the rates are not going to go up. Deductible goes up 200, but that's nothing we, as a council, can control. I guess there's some risk to it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could have a bad year, but then the stop loss covers that.
Correct.
Just kind of speaking out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is complex.
Yeah.
Councilor Lindsay, I think that the positive on it is that the worst case scenario is that it costs us almost $33,000 less going self-funded versus going fully insured for 2024.
Well, and God forbid, I mean, that's guaranteed what we'll save, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
It cannot be higher than that amount that they say the maximum.
$2,535,748.
Spousal exclusion, was that discussed at all? With your committee or anything?
No.
Would that not be a savings the town could?
Yeah, it could be, but that wasn't discussed. We talked about trying not to create any change to the plan, and that's actually considered part of the plan document. So, it could be done, and it would certainly save more monies, but that wasn't something that was discussed, just trying to minimize the change for employees and families.
So the cards that the employees have now, will they get new cards because we're switching to the ASO?
It's a different
Yeah.
policy number.
Okay.
I mean, they would have gotten new cards
You get new cards pretty
each
much every
renewal
year.
anyways, but yes, it'll be a different number on there.
Well, there have been some years that I keep. the
Nothing
same card.
changed.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, but this year they
Well-
changed anyway just because of the deductible.
Rates go up, but the card stays the same.
I got a question for you, Philip. You know, when you were vetting this, you know, were there other communities similar our size that are doing it, using it now? And Bob, you might have something to say in relationship to that, and how is it working out for them?
Boone County has been partially self-funded for quite a few years. They use UMR now for quite a while. And they've realized some pretty substantial savings. They've had a couple bad years with cancer patients and diabetes patients and things, and still have been able to see some savings from it. In terms of the administration side, our auditor's office just gets every week a bill from UMR saying this is what you owe. And it's just one more claim in the cycle. We have a separate docket for it just so the commissioners can see how much is being spent on that side of things, but it's relatively easy from an administrative side.
If you have to ask questions about those claims, or, I mean, I don't know what those questions.
You mean a member?
Yeah, like, the town,
The town-
questions about, hey, this is higher than what we expected. Are you able to, for them to?
Yes, you can with UMR. There's certain information, of course, that they can't give you, or they can only give one person within the county that has access to the protected health information, the PHI. But if you get a bill that you thought was going to be $20,000 and it's $200,000 or something, you can certainly ask for some detailing on it. They just can't give you the PHI on it.
And the employee, if they have questions, they still go to Anthem as their first, and as a town, we can either go to Anthem or we can go to the consultant broker to get that information, the same as we have today under the past broker consultant.
So I think directly, I don't know that the individual counselor would have the
No,
ability to do that.
No.
It would likely be me that would.
I don't mean that at all.
Okay.
But I mean, like, your office.
Correct.
You are responsible for paying the bill.
Right.
Philip goes, I'm not saying a counselor goes. That's something
Yeah.
I would never ask.
And then, Mr. Nob, so in the course of this, I spoke with roughly half a dozen different government entities that have done this sort of transition. I'll tell you, some of them have been doing it for a long time. So we're kind of late to the game on this. And I did ask repeatedly, did you have any regrets? Is there something, would you, going back in time, would you not do it or what? And I never got that. I'm not saying that there isn't anybody out there, but of the people that I talked to, no one said, no, we'd rather be fully insured right now. And I know that Mr. Kleinheinz has said that they had a good experience in Brownsburg, and he's confirmed that they're still doing that as well.
I would agree. I'm not aware of any municipalities that have regretted it, and Boone County's been partially self-insured for probably 10 years.
I think you feel the pain when you don't see the persons, but you feel the pain when you know you had more costs in one year than you maybe did in another year. But when you call it the long view or whatever you called that earlier, I think when you keep that in mind, you're looking at, typically in this industry, you have one bad year for every 4 to 5 good years. So for us, we've had 2 or 3, years where I think Anthem's taken advantage of us. And, if we're running at 85% and we're going to save, they're going to make $380,000 on us this year. That meant they made similar money last year and the year before that. So we will have a bad year. There's no doubt that we'll have a down year, the same as the economy, the same as anything, gas prices or anything else. But over a 4 or 5 year period, we'll have 4 or 5 good years.
Not to repeat myself, but so our coverage stays the same for next year. The premiums are staying the same? How about dental and eye? Is that still under Anthem?
They are. I'm not even contemplating that we would address those at all. We priced them out, and there might have been some minimal savings by looking at other places, but it seemed like there was too much change we were proposing anyways. So those are separate policies that aren't even covered in the health insurance, and they would remain in place.
Okay. And I know we've gone on some time, Ben, and I appreciate the work on this. I really do. I wish we had other times to chat about it, but I know you've done a lot of work with it. This is something every year it seems like we deal with. There's always, they always come to us with some large number that I think maybe they think we're going to say yes one of these years, and we haven't in my 12 years of being here, so.
It's like buying a car.
What's that?
It's like buying a car.
Yeah, yeah. So I know this has been a lot of work for you, Philip, and I greatly appreciate that. I guess it's the risk that kind of concerns me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, we've talked about it for years. So.
Oh, yeah. It's something we've discussed on council for several years.
It's something that, and I'm not a hard salesman at all, so I don't like compressed timelines. As we've talked about before, we were only able to discuss loose quotes before. The people wouldn't lock in the numbers on it. And we literally I didn't receive this until this morning, the firm numbers, and I think that that's by intention from the insurance provider, that they would prefer that we stay with fully insured because that's the cash cow for them. But given that the top line risk number is $30,000 less than paying our fully insured premiums next year, I don't see the downside at this point. And the timeline is that, they do, when they give us these quotes, they're good for a certain amount of time because they based them on the last month's set of claims data. So they've all got the current set of claims data. Anthem did say that this would be good through November 20th. Unfortunately, if we did wait till that long, it would create a little bit of a problem for open enrollment for us. And the other quotes then expire at the end of the month, so there's like a disconnect between those. So again, I'm not for the hard sell. If the decision was that we even, wanted to schedule another council meeting, I'll be here any evening that you want to set. But preferably, we would want to have a decision at a meeting well before our next one is scheduled.
Personally, I feel like as always, I seem to ask a lot of questions, but I feel like I've got the answers to the questions that, I think it's the risk, but if our employees keep the same coverage, the same amount, and we're saving money for next year, I think that's a positive, so it's kind of where I'm at with it.
I agree, David. I mean, I think, this is a proven method of ensuring a, town environment. And, if we were the first ones out on the block and risking it a lot there's a lot of examples out there of this taking place. And I think that from an employee standpoint, it's going to be, really transition to this is going to be very easy to do. And I think it leads to a lot of other opportunities. Maybe not this immediately, or even in worst case scenario, but at least we'll be on the path of start offsetting some of the cost increases in medical. I mean, medical and pharmaceutical is almost as bad as far as inflation goes as anything.
Well, I was glad to see the Anthem came back to us.
Me too.
With a more agreeable number than what they first proposed to us.
Right.
So.
Me too.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. I'm going to restate.
The motion?
Yeah, the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, can I ask
Yeah.
for one point of specificity with that motion? And actually, it's, I guess you could, one piece of generality. As I think we briefly discussed about before, so the firm quote from Anthem is for a $75,000 deductible. And I'm asking if you would consider approving it without that term being specified so that I could potentially accept a $100,000 deductible. We had asked for them to quote it that way as well, and they did not. So we would go back and ask them to quote it that way again. And if the numbers worked out better for us, I would want to be able to accept the $100,000 deductible instead of $75,000.
That's on the stop loss
That's on the
coverage.
stop loss. It may turn out that this is the best deal, but when you look at columns 3 and 4 there from UMR, it turned out that the number crunching was such that a $100,000 deductible was better for us than a $75,000. So I have an inkling that might be the case with Anthem as well. And I'd like to be able to take advantage of that if they finally do what we asked them to do and give us the quote for that as well.
Yeah,
But either way, that the motion would be that we accept Anthem ASO self-funded option with them as our administrator and stop loss carrier.
Okay, so I'll restate my motion with a slight edit. I move that we approve the Anthem ASO self-funded health plan and give authority to our clerk treasurer to negotiate the final details up to $100,000 stop loss deductible as presented.
Second the amendment.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the changes. So if there's not any other discussion, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Next on the agenda, approval of claims and utility
Okay.
adjustments. Philip?
Thank you. I have both claims and utility adjustments for the council's review today. And they are both for the dates of October 5th through October 18th, 2023. The claims are in the amount of $1,555,517.26. And then the adjustments for the same time period are on 2 sheets of paper.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the claims and adjustments as presented to us by Clerk Treasurer.
Okay, got a motion, got a second? Go ahead and open up any questions. Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor as for the claims and utility adjustments as submitted by our town clerk treasurer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Next up, our town manager report.
I don't have anything this evening.
You've been doing nothing?
Yeah, that's not the case, but
All right. Next up, Gary Pendigo is out. Next for the counselors, Eileen Fisher,
Nothing this evening.
David Lindsay,
Nothing more this evening.
Gary Rakes.
Real quick, Halloween is next week. Let's make sure we be on the watch for all the little kiddos and parents that are trailing behind or nearby. And just everybody have a great week.
Fantastic. Next, a report from the town council president. All I want to bring to the public's attention is that we're still in need of boards and commissions. And this is a tremendous opportunity for the public to be involved in your local government. And we run a lot more effectively when we have all the boards and commissions staffed. So there's a lot of opportunities. And Grant, they're on the website.
yeah, it's on the website. We'll do another press release tomorrow or Wednesday, and we're trying to close that application process sometime next week because we want to get those to the council and allow you guys time to review those. So please get those in if you have a desire to serve.
That's all I have for tonight. No other discussion? I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:17. That wasn't long.